Welcome to Jordan Likes Movies. Today I want to start off with doing my yearly list. I know we're nearly a week now into 2025, but I thought the year in film in 2024 was overall pretty solid. I think a lot of kind of the hiccups and restrictions that were happening due to the pandemic are kind of really loosening up to the point where I think movies seem to be coming back at a normal pace now, unlike they were a few years ago. And for me personally, this was really a year that I reconnected back with film. It wasn't a new movie that came out that really brought me back, but for me, it was actually watching Goodfellas. I was going through a period where I wasn't watching too many movies. I was just kind of, I don't know, I would watch the odd one every month or something like that. Which for me, I'm someone that watches a movie every day or a few every day. So it was definitely not normal, but whenever I watched Goodfellas, it made me appreciate it again, really dive back into it. And so this year I want to watch more new movies, even though for me, in my personal taste, I usually like watching older films. They usually stand the test of time or usually have elements in it that I think in newer films I'm kind of annoyed with. But this year I did actually see a decently number of films. I obviously didn't see everything I want to see this year. Certain films like these ones I do want to watch, I do want to catch, but this month of December was pretty chaotic, pretty nuts. I'm planning probably sometime this week to catch those on, and there's a few other ones on this list that you might be like, why wasn't that on the list? Something like Dune 2, Part 2. I didn't see the first one, and I'll get to it eventually, but I think a lot of films I watched the movies I want to see this year. There's really no movies other than like the three I'm showed that I'm really hammering to go see. So for me, there's obviously tons of movies that came out this year. I didn't see any of them. I'd also say arguably I didn't see a bad movie this year, especially in theaters. I didn't see a bad movie. So here we go. Let's get into the list. All right, starting off at the bottom of the list, but I would argue this is not a bad film. I think most people would say that. For me, I just kind of found it frankly boring for a good portion of it, especially in the middle, and just overall just mediocre. To me, I really love the modern Planet of the Apes trilogy. I think it's probably one of the most solid trilogies in recent years. And including, I think it was a good showcase of special effects, and I enjoyed Caesar and things like that. So I do kind of like the idea, the concept that they're going now with the saga kind of thing. It's not going to be tied to those ones, or it might have. It's not gonna have those characters. I should say. Overall, I kind of just thought it was meh. I'm really tired of like the overgrown green dystopian future, like Shutdown City. The Last of Us did it, and to me, I don't know. After that, I was just kind of bored with the aesthetic. To me, it's not that pleasing or interesting. Um, but overall, I think it's definitely a solid movie, but definitely not a movie that I'm gonna ever watch or want to own. So this one could be controversial. I'm gonna go with Deadpool and Wolverine. I just did not really like this film, and I think for me, the issue was Deadpool, and that's probably the problem because I think outside of Deadpool, I really enjoyed this movie. I loved Wolverine. I love that they went back to the classic costume. I love Gambit. I love all the cast characters. Blade came back. That was fucking dope. I thought that was awesome. But the worst part about this movie is Deadpool, who is a major part of this fucking movie, obviously, and the villain was another boring, drab Marvel villain. But for me, I think I'm just sick of Deadpool. So I imagine if people really love Deadpool or find him hilarious, you're probably gonna enjoy it. For me, I liked the first film. Second one was okay, and now this one is just for me. I'm just sick of this character. If they make another movie with this character, I'm not gonna see it. I don't know. He's a character that's stuck 10, 15 years in the past with his comedy writing. All of his jokes to me just seemed like one note, like gay innuendos or gay jokes. And I don't know. I think, and also fuck Ryan Reynolds. I don't like that guy. Next on the list, this one came out early this year, and that is Immaculate. This is essentially kind of Rosemary's Baby mixed in with like a religious cult. But this was actually a pretty solid horror flick. It was pretty fun for me. Like it was I to me I really enjoy horror movies that use like religious or cultish kind of backgrounds and things like that. The ending I think is a lot where people kind of maybe I think will overrate this or underrate this. Like I think some people might say like, oh, that ending was awful. I can't deal with it, and that made the movie bad. Or some people think that ending was so shocking and amazing that it made the movie better. But I don't think it really did. I think for me it was kind of an average film. I thought it was a ballsy ending. But turn the camera. Go full force. All right, next one, probably another controversial one, and that is Inside Out 2. I love the first Inside Out. The first Inside Out blew my mind. I thought it was such a good film. It connected with me well. Connected with so many people around me too. Like my mom absolutely loved this film. And so for me, I was excited to see what they're going to do. I think Pixar has been in a creative well as of recently and have only been doing sequels to, I don't know, things that I don't really think need a sequel. I get how they were able to use it with her going through puberty and growing up, kind of going through big life changes. But I don't know. To me, it just seemed a lot like a rehash of the first one, where just like one emotion was controlling everything and fucking everything up, and then it has to be joy that comes back and then learns a lesson that we need all our emotions. I don't know. It was just okay to me. I didn't find it overly funny, and I think the biggest thing too, I really enjoyed it on the first watch. Rewatch, because I was able to rewatch it with my mom. She didn't get to watch it in theaters. And I really was like, this, I just want this to be over. This is not enjoyable. But hey, if you like it, you can like it. That's the point of film. Next on the list, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, and so I was curious with this one. It seemed like a return to ways. I know he's done like sequels and remakes of his other films in the past few years, but it just seemed like kind of more of a classic Kevin Smith story that we haven't probably seen since like Mike and Mary. And overall, it was fun. It was a good movie. I think to me, what I struggled with, because I think this was a movie made for it's film guys or film bros or film lovers. You don't have to be a guy, but I think it's kind of too pandering, and that's an issue with Kevin Smith. He has that persona in this like kind of jokey how much he's into geek culture, but I think sometimes he almost gets in almost like Big Bang Theory writing, where you're just as like so much pandering, but it's like, do you like these things? Do you love these things as much as you're like pandering to them? And definitely the worst part of the movie was like, for me, the worst part when you do any period piece or throwback film is you maybe get one. You can get one. Oh, Star Wars will never have a prequels. They like I swear they did that type of joke with other franchises, Batman, Disney, all that Marvel, all that shit. They did that joke, I swear, like 6 or 7 times, and then I was just like, oh, Kevin Smith, like you're a better writer than this. You know that is shitty, hacky writing. But the characters were great. The acting was really fun they're like all teenagers. So they did a great job. Worth a watch if you're a Kevin Smith fan. If you're not a Kevin Smith fan, you might enjoy it. To me, the best part though was by far Ken Jeong as the movie man or the guy who owned the theater. He was absolutely hilarious. He put in so much effort for that performance. I think he's a great comedian. And I don't know, just was such a great role as stupid like movie mobile. I thought that was really good. That was like really fun. That was probably my favorite part of the movie. Alright, next on the list, this will probably be my most controversial pick. That is Joker 2, Joker Folie à Deux. And I get why people hate this. I understand why people hated this, but I did not hate it as much as I did. I was more disappointed, and for me the biggest thing is because I didn't watch this in theaters. When I heard all the reviews, I was like, man, I don't really want. I was a busy time in my life. I was like, I don't need to get out to see the theaters, so I waited to watch it. I have a projector in my house, so still saw it on the big screen. And for me, the struggle I had, I didn't mind this was a musical. I did not mind that. To me, I thought they actually established it pretty well in the first opening. I don't remember the exact opening, but it was definitely in the first 20 minutes where it is like it is something that was kind of established in the first movie, that this is a guy who daydreams, who imagines himself in these grandiose kind of things, being on a late night show, being the center of attention, that kind of thing. And to me, I understood why he would maybe have musical, but there's a lot of buts to where we're wrong, because I think there were some great musical numbers. There's probably about 2 or 3 that I really enjoyed. I think there were probably about 8 songs. Don't quote me on that, but that's how much I remember. but I would say there was like 3 to 4 really good sequences, especially when they went on the show and he was with Harley. They were all in the suit and the makeup, everything. I thought that looked so cool. It was such a good throwback. But beyond that, there was some awful song, like Les Miserables level music, where it's just this like whisper sing talk that sounds like shit. It sounds like shit, and sometimes they wouldn't even have a backing instrumental on it. So it was just basically felt like a raw vocal, and it was just like so awkward and cringe. And that was the part that really took me out of it, and that took off a lot of this movie. But everything else of this movie, I thought was fucking dope. I thought it was awesome that they went to the prison. I thought the characters in the prison were very interesting, very compelling, especially the main guard. I can't remember that actor's name, but he's amazing. He did a great job in it. I thought the ending was ballsy, and I loved it. I also, to me, the biggest thing I love, because I'm not a huge comic book guy, I appreciate some of the movies because I grew up with them. But I understand that they're really not, I don't want to say high-level cinema, that's pretentious, but I would say that they're really kind of, for me, more or less for kids or to entertain a large audience. And for me, the biggest thing I hate, especially with the Marvel movies, especially their later half of movies, is just how connected they are. And that really, it seems like no movie has stakes, or they'll maybe make a movie after 20 movies that actually has fucking stakes. It's like, oh wow, took you this long to have stakes. This movie addressed what happened in the first movie, and I love that. I love that they actually addressed it. They took it in a realistic lens. The first one was a pretty realistic movie, so it made sense. But the court scenes, I think court is a great way to incite drama in a movie and kind of give a lot of background and things like that. I thought those scenes were great. And of course, Joaquin Phoenix, brilliant as hell, as always. But for me, I enjoyed it. It's a good movie. Next we got, and I would say at this point in the list, these are films that I really loved, or that these are easily to the point of like 4 stars or not. And this would be Transformers 1. This was a surprise. I think a lot of people, I was not expecting the reviews that this film was going to get, but I'm so glad I went out to see it. It was a great story. I'm not a big Transformers guy. Didn't grow up with the movies. Didn't like the Michael Bay films. Even as a kid, I thought it just looked awful. And I never grew up with the toys or the cartoons. And that just wasn't part of my childhood. But this was a great way to introduce someone to the franchise, especially a child, I would say, to a franchise. Kind of almost had a twist in a way that actually kind of, not took me for a surprise, but it was definitely like, wow, that was actually a really good way to create a villain, or to give a villain backstory, while also providing like a protagonist backstory and rise and things like that. It just was great, well animated, great action sequences, worth the watch. Genuinely, I really hope the Transformers movies move in this direction. For me, I'm interested in the sequel in this movie. They make a sequel, I think they will. I think it made money. And just overall, good movie. Go check it out. Favorite animated movie of the year, and that is A Wild Robot. This is a movie that is getting tons of acclaim, and it should. It deserves all those claims. I actually found out that this was actually based off like a children's book. For me, at first, I thought this was a brand new IP, and that's something that is impressing me with DreamWorks as of recently, is that they are making some sequels, the Puss in Boots movie, they're making like Shrek 5, stuff like that, but overall they're still trying out these new franchises and taking stuff that's not wildly popular. Like when, for me at least, seeing How to Train Your Dragon, I knew that was a children's book, but that was not in, at least from where I grew up, or where it, like culturally, it was not a big children's book. And I'm glad that they kind of take these more obscure, lesser known children's stories that are really good, really solid, and create great films with them. And that's exactly what The Wild Robot is. It gave me like those warm fuzzies that I haven't felt in a while. And just overall, short and sweet. I mean, it's like a little bit over an hour and a half. Great film. Great film. The animation took me a bit to get into at first, because it is kind of stylized comparatively to most of these like animal ones, but I loved it. It was a good movie. Terrifier 3. What a juxtaposition. No, I love Terrifier. I think, to me, that these are a really exciting time for independent movies and independent horror films. Seeing this film franchise rise to the level where it's at, where this movie was really successful, made more than the Joker. That's a super fucking impressive, and I love that they went with Christmas. I think Christmas horror movies are fun way to do it. I'm not a big Christmas guy, so to me, if you're gonna make it really dark and fucked up, I love that. And seeing Art the Clown again, of course, he puts on a masterclass in silent acting and just some of the most brutal kills in this franchise, which is always impressive because the other two have some of the most brutal freaking kills in, from what I know, horror history. But there probably is some other crazier ones. But overall, worth the watch. I think this movie, and of course I'm gonna fault the movie for this, but it's an issue with the entire franchise, which it does have pacing and writing issues. Is that I remember especially watching the first film, that dialogue was absolute shit. Like that dialogue in the first film, it's just laughable. It's just so unrealistic. So it feels like they're taken from like way different parts. They don't seem to be edited well. And the issues, and sometimes with these movies, before the final act hits, usually that 20-minute buffer point before that, it's really, really losing itself. And when it flashes back to characters that aren't Art the Clown or aren't gonna fuck something up, it can be quite boring. I think he has to get better at writing normal people, because I think you have to, especially with horror movies. So it's why Halloween 1 is so good, is because you cared about Laurie Strode. You wanted her to win. But when you make bad characters in horror films or don't build those characters enough, you don't care. You don't have that anxiety of them. You don't want them to get hit. So I think that's where it struggled. But overall, I'm so glad this franchise is successful. It's bringing in maybe a resurgence in horror, especially independent horror. And Damien Alone, I think you just make movies instead of going to therapy. All right, next on the list, we got Beetlejuice 2. This is, of course, a legacy sequel. Beetlejuice came out in 1989, so my rough math would be it's as old as Taylor Swift, so like 35. And this movie, I was scared for, because Tim Burton, he is one of my favorite directors. He's one of the main directors that got me into films. Big Fish is one of my favorite films of all time. But he has been shit. As of recently, he's been absolute shit. He seems to overuse CGI to a point that it's like just gross and just so displeasing to any aesthetic. And that's the thing, he built himself as an aesthetic director. He truly was a director that you saw a shot of his film, you knew that's a Tim Burton movie. That's definitely a Tim Burton movie. For probably his past 5 or 6 movies, especially like weird when he made Dumbo and Miss Pedigree, which was like a children's book, it's like these were just terrible decisions by him. So I think for him, it felt like he was creatively rejuiced, or he felt like he had that spark again, that he could go back to something that he loved, something that he created, and that really gave him the name that he has today. And he did a good job with it. I'm glad that he went back to practical effects. I enjoyed the cast that he got for it. I'd say the strangest stuff is, like, for me, I thought the Bob, I believe his name is, the guy who's married to Catherine O'Hare, who's like a big perv. I thought there was going to be 2 seconds of, okay, here's his grave, now he's done with. It was weird that they kept going back to him constantly in the movie, and he kind of actually had an importance in the film, which I just thought was weird. I don't know, I just thought they could have just done away with that character, created a new character. And definitely the, like, Bride of Frankenstein chick that was, like, going after Beetlejuice was a really bad B story, or CD story. And somewhat with the Willem Dafoe stuff, I kind of was like, even though I just loved Willem Dafoe, so I'm like, that's where I'm split. I'm like, am I just in love with Willem Dafoe, and I just think this is okay, even though it's really not important to the film, or really not that funny. But everything else was great in it. I'm glad to see Jenna Ortega is working with him. They seem to be, like, perfect for each other. Of course, Michael Keaton was brilliant as always. He is meant for this character. And just good flick, worth a watch. Definitely for me. I love the first Beetlejuice. So to me, that they actually were able to make a solid sequel, I'll take it. I'll take it. Maybe in a few years I might think it's shit or something. But for right now, I really liked it. Next, we got The Challengers. And this was a movie that really took me by surprise. When I saw the poster and kind of the stuff around it, I was just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to watch it. But I was like, I was hearing a lot of good praises from it. And then I found out it was directed by the guy who made Call Me By Your Name. So I was like, okay, this is actually probably going to be a decent film. And I really, really enjoyed it. It was such a solid sports film. And to me, the thing that makes a great sports film is a story that tells. I think a lot of sports films fall into like the trap of like shitty team gets better, something happens to the team, but they're able to make it to the final and then they win. Or they might lose, but they'll learn the lesson that it was the journey or something. This was not one of those sports movies. This was a story about kind of about your background, your adolescence, kind of growing up, losing your friend, seeing your friends change in two drastic ways. And it was just really solid, well directed. And I thought, too, there was a cool, especially towards the end, because you watch the start of the film, the tennis scenes are very standardly filmed. Like, there's nothing that interesting to them, but when they have, like, the final match, way more creative with how they film tennis match. There's literally a shot where you are the tennis ball. The camera is the tennis ball. I thought that was so cool. Zendaya really has turned me around on her. For me, as Zendaya, I was never a big fan. I really didn't like her in the Marvel movies, and I probably kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth with her. But she's an amazing actor. She's an amazing actor. She looks great. All the acting in this movie was really good. I'm glad, too, that they didn't hire different actors or try to do the de-aging effect on the actors. They more essentially just, like, shaved their beards and were like, all right, they're 19 years younger or whatever. It was like that kind of part where it's like you kind of have to accept that. But to me, I think it was probably a more subtle way. Whereas you go with the de-aging effects or all those kind of things, it can really take you out of the film and make it look even worse than maybe just basically shaving the actors and putting on like young people clothes on. Alright, next on the list, we got Love Lies Bleeds. This film I want to see mostly because John Waters put it on his top list, and anything that he recommends I'm always interested in. And this was a great crime thriller, kind of horror-ish, kind of love story too. It was entwined with the lesbian love story set in, I believe, the late 80s or early 90s. And for me, I thought it was so cool. I thought it was just a very fun, had great music, had some great scenes, great shooting. My issue, though, has to go back with Kristen Stewart. She obviously has come a long way since the Twilight movies. But my issue with her is she struggles with sincerity as an actor. And that is a very important thing. Because there are some scenes where she needs to be really sincere, but I can't stop thinking that she sounds sarcastic after everything that she says. She just, I don't know if it's their tone of voice, if it's how she enunciates the dialogue. It just seems to me so freaking sarcastic. Like, it just does not seem like a genuine thing at all. But other than that, it was amazingly made, amazing movie. And some great acting elsewhere. Alright, next on this list, we got I Saw the TV Glow. Another A24 film. This film, I was hearing early buzz about. I heard some mixed thoughts about it. But I was like, alright, let's check this out. A24, they put on some good stuff. I didn't see any of the director's earlier work. But this was so good. It tells a very, about finding yourself, finding your identity. And through this film, it uses basically kind of not a parody because it's not meant to be funny, but it basically is a recreation of like Twin Peaks, X-Files. There's like Monster of the Week shows that are set in the 90s, and it was so friggin' accurate. I loved every time they went to those scenes. I thought it was just brilliant because there are some movies that will use older shows or older things, but it's so obvious. It's like they're just using this as an aesthetic, but they're not actually trying to recreate this in any way. The way that they nailed the music, the way that the text was on the screen, the way that the camera looked, the way that the monsters looked was so cool. And throughout that, the main character you really find, and the two characters in this film are just such a fascinating characters. I was not familiar with any of their prior work before that, but they to me put in two amazing, stellar performances. Especially probably pretty emotional, I would say too, for both of them. To for what some of these characters go through in this film. But I just think this was a brilliant, brilliant film. I hope this director makes more movies. I want to check out more of his work. All right, and we made it. The number one film for me of the year is Anora, Sean Baker's potential future masterpiece, in my opinion. I loved this film. I didn't hear anything about this at all before. Basically, I walked past the poster at my local movie theaters, saw some of the names. And I was like, oh shit, okay, I want to check that out. So for me, for most movies, I hate seeing synopsis. I don't like watching trailers. For me, I think the best way to go into a movie is absolutely cold, absolutely blind, because that's where you're not gonna have any of these prior. Because if I know some of the plot, I'm gonna be like thinking that the whole way through is that I'm gonna be okay. Well, then it's gonna eventually come to here where that character dies or whatever it is. This film I recommend if you're gonna watch it, you haven't seen it yet, do that. Just put it on, just see where the story takes you. And Mickey Madison, I know she was in like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think some of those like Euphoria and I don't really watch TV shows, but oh my god, is she like to me the best new actress that I've seen in a long time. She just puts on such a stellar performance, a very strong performance in the way that her character has to go through so much while also staying strong. I thought that was very impressive. Very funny film too, like in a genuine funny sense. It wasn't slowing down the movie. It wasn't making this like obvious kind of thing. It just was like genuinely funny and kind of the way that life reacts. And I think Sean Baker is really good at recreating that. And throughout that, the visual aesthetic of this film was absolutely so enamoring. I think this also might be the first film I've seen that had a character using a dab pen. So I don't know. That's something, I guess. No, I really recommend this. I don't know if she's gonna get nominated for an Oscar. I think she deserves to. And the other characters along the way too, and the other supporting actors are amazing too. Especially the Igor, who is one of the bodyguards. But hey, that's the list. That was all the movies I've seen in 2024. I still want to watch some more. I still want to check out some more movies this year. But for me, now it's time to look ahead, go into 2025, enjoy some good films. I've already watched, for me, that I started this year off day one watching The Godfather because I haven't seen it and it was fucking amazing. So I still want to watch new movies, but I really love to get a history and just get to see all these amazing classic movies. So throughout this on my channel, I'll be doing reviews kind of randomly of movies I'm watching. To me, I don't really watch new movies that come out in theaters, or I don't really religiously see what's coming out new. For me, it has to interest me first for me to go check it out or seek it out. But I watch a lot of older films. I watch films daily. So I'll be having a lot of random kind of movie reviews out there. Also some director inspections and going through their filmography and going through what I like about their work. So appreciate it, guys. If you enjoy it, hit that sub.